Ladies and gentlemen, with the word, the Vice President of the Republic. Ambassador Inácio is representative of the European Union here in Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors and other group members of the consular group here present, General João Chalela Jr., the military commander of the North. In order, I greet all the other military authorities here, ladies and gentlemen, and other representatives of the government of the state of Pará, Mr. Marcos Madureira, president of the Spanish Chamber for Commerce, Sérgio Chamoni, president of the Chamber, Brazil, Finland, ladies and gentlemen, businessmen and other participants and attendees of this seminar. Good afternoon. Marcos open talking about my agenda. I would just like to say that the day before yesterday I was in Cabo Verde, now I'm in Belém. So we have to be moving constantly. That's why I didn't have the opportunity to have had to participate of all this activity that was done here in the Amazon. However, before we start, before doing this and some considerations of the work that has been done throughout these days, I would like to remind you that we don't live on comfortable land. We are navigating under a storm. But of course, it's not just privilege of our generation. Every once in a while we have a crisis. In this 21st century, this last 20 years, we had a threat of the Big Bang, that all the computers would go down and then we would wake up on the 1st of January of 2000 without being able to communicate. Actually, nothing happened. Right after that, we had the terrorist attacks of 9/11, 2001. We have a conflict in the world, especially in that area, and this conflict continued until some months ago when the United States removed all the troops from Afghanistan, and afterly the status quo came back to Afghanistan with the Taliban taking over the control of that country. In 2008, we had the financial economic crisis of the subprimes, which caused a huge disruption in the world economy. Until today, we still feel a reflection of those. And immediately, when the world seemed to be getting organized economically, we have the COVID-19 pandemic with all the consequences on health, of course, but also with the amount of people who were infected and are still being infected, with a huge number of people who passed away, and also consequences in the economic area, once again going through a disruption, with the global chains suffering an interruption and an inflation, because from one point the engine stopped and it's not able to produce, it used to produce before, and all the countries of the world have money in their population. They have money and they can't buy anything. There's nothing to buy, and this turns into inflation. That's what's happening in Brazil and other countries. Like yesterday, the inflation in the United States reaching something around 6%, which is not something normal. And also the social aspect. The great number of families that suffered due to this disease, people lost their jobs, and that is generating a radical change on the way the market works. And all of you who are businessmen understand this, and all of you who have to be inside the market went through some difficulties to be able to afford your families. So this is the scenario around us. And besides all this panorama, we have a new concern, which is the sustainability, the preservation of the life on Earth. Something that now is being discussed effectively on the last 30 years. Now we're in Glasgow, going through a final phase of the discussion to be able to set up an agreement for more than 190 countries that we can reduce on the next 30 years the emissions of the greenhouse effects, the CO2, but also methane and others, so that we will be able to keep life on Earth in a level that we can go to the next generations a healthy planet, and not like those films that we watch from the future, right? Where the world turns in something very gray and a constant pollution with a lot of difficulties trying to disappear based on the difficulties that we have. And then we have the subject, the Amazon. That's the reason why I would like to greet the Spain Chamber and the Euro Chamber and Finland for the excellence of the planning and the execution of this conference, which the name is extraordinary, Amazonia in Loco, because the place to discuss the Amazon is in the Amazon. This is where we have to discuss the problems and how we're going to solve them. And then it reminds me, Clodomir Viana Muji, on his book, The Cycle of the Black Gold, 80 years ago, in 90 years ago, when he came from the state of the Amazon. He was in Maracapuru. It's a city from the Amazon. So, open quotes. The Amazon is a land that changes. The fixation of this preliminary is a requirement for those who try to understand it. So this is a huge space, specific case for the Brazilian Amazon that corresponds to 60% of our territory. This territory in the center-south of the country, where we have the state. It's a state where most of the people until today, you can only arrive by plane or boat, where the territory is counted in days and weeks and not minutes and hours like other places of our country. A huge part of the country knows this. And all of us, we need to understand that this region will, for many, many years, show a huge demographic gap in terms of uncalculated number of wealth. It will need to be preserved, protected, and developed within the 21st century requirements. This is the biggest challenge we have. So, having said this, the choice for the location of the event, and with these words, so that all of them to get to know the Amazon and deploy this reality with the wealth, potential, and challenges. This conference had the objective, extraordinary objective, to contribute with the comprehension and the equation of the current problems faced in the Amazon. Of course, the protection of biodiversity for our population, and also the deployment of the pure reality of the Amazon without ideologic filters or momentaneous passions. We have to have pragmatic points to discuss these problems. And within this perspective, the Brazilian government has tried to see all the efforts to be able to get this point, to have the Amazon preserved and with a high rate of development. We have highlighted intense efforts with the agreements with the associations of free commerce and free trade to be rectified as soon as possible. Throughout COP26 in Glasgow, all the commitments that have been made, especially the ones related to end the illegal deforestation by 2030, as well as the Pact for the Forest and also the agreement for the methane, demonstrates that the government and the Brazilian society started and shared. It's important to say that the multilateral changes related to climate, biodiversity, sustainable development also carry the Brazilian negotiators' background. I remember that the energy matrix for Brazil is more than 80% constituted by renewable sources. Our agribusiness has invested in technology, and then we have this investment respecting all the legal, social, and safety requirements which are characteristics of the modern projects. Now, I've seen the data that IBGE foresees for our harvest for grains on the following year is above 220 billion tons, an increase of almost 8% related to the year of 2021. With the understanding that Brazil also is the heart of the tropical forest, is not the only one that covers this biome. So, our National Council of the Amazon has created in the Amazon the cooperation treaty seeking to bring to the international discussions all the other countries which also have a responsibility for the preservation, conservation, and development of this region. The growth of the illegal deforestation which happened as of 2019 has determined a broader strategy for the Amazon. It starts with the reactivation of the National Council for the Legal Amazon by President Bolsonaro, started in February, and now I am designated to be the head of this council. With the authorization of the President also employing our military services, which is not the main service, but to cooperate with other members of the state to fight the illegalities that happen here. And then we had all the Green Brazil Operations 1 and also the Samaúma operation, which has been recently terminated. Having said this, our fiscalization agents plus the federal police, the national military force, and all the state entities are now operating together, trying to create a synergy. Thus, we have launched the Amazon 2021-2022 plan with specific objectives to fight these illegal actions until the end of the government's in force. Throughout the last 18 months, we have prioritized this illegal deforestation and the environmental preservation at the same time that we have articulated this strategy to strengthen the presence, the state in this region, trying to seek at all moments to promote alternatives for employment and income for the local population. Strategic objectives have been set. I would highlight to have a better fight for illicit activities, foster sustainability, and expand the access to financial resources, public or private, national or international. With almost 2 years of work in the Council, some of the expressive results have been reached and deserve to be highlighted. The effectiveness to fight the deforestation. We have been able to revert the trajectory of the deforestation, and this year the fires are being reduced in 40%, which is an extremely expressive result. We have integrated all the knowledge systems for different areas of the government, which has brought an improvement in the information available to take decisions. In order to do so, we have created an integration group for protection of the Amazon. It's based in the policy CECIPAN for the Amazon, And there we have the main institutions of supervision. So we have elements from the National Institute for Spatial Research, ICMBio, Federal Police, FUNAI, INCRA, all of them working all the actions and intelligence that are being done, analyzing the satellite images, and also supplying and online all the information for the field teams to supervise. And at the end of the month, I believe that in 2 weeks, Proges is going to give the result for the period of August 2021, which in our assessment is going to have a reduction of 5% of the deforestation related to the last cycle. This is not something that we should celebrate, but it's a trend that we need to try to pursue, focused to get zero of illegal, illicit deforestation. This is something that we're going to require the support from everybody. Indication of the Council, they have tried to authorize resources and new hires. Let's remember that the President has doubled this point, focus on the Ministry of Labor, with a specification that the environmental agencies would have more capacity to perform the work. Besides, we have authorized a bidding process to hire more supervisors for ICMBio, and also the Ministry of Justice through the Federal Police Team and National Military Force that I have already mentioned, acting more thoroughly to environmental crimes. In Itaituba, the Federal Police is now going through an extensive operation to fight the illegal mining extraction. Guardões for many other smaller operations, and of course they have already faced more than 15 forest fires in 11 states, 3,000 actions, and the military entity, showing the advance for this point. We have had different discussions in order to coordinate the activities for institutions like a superintendency, and also the development of the Amazon are the main parties. And also the development and public of Acre, Rondônia, and the Amazon, to be able to verify all the other actions to foster the development for the region. As a consequence of these actions, we can see that the employment that is perfect from all the means and structure is going to give a much more expressive result, and we will be able to achieve our obligation to zero the illegal deforestation. So it's very important. I would call now the fight for all Brazilians so that we can deploy in your destinations the real Amazon. The Amazon that preserves 84% of its native forest, protects the biggest biodiversity of the planet, and also that tries to seek all the conditions for the more than 2,000 million Brazilians who live in this area, but keeping their culture and their costumes within that huge cultural archipelago which is our Brazil. Congratulations once again to the organizers and all of them who have worked to discuss the Amazon. And thank you very much. Thank you, Vice President and other participants of this panel.